All right, I think I'm live right now. Some of you thought that I was live before and it seemed like it's not opening, but it is. I was just testing the camera. I just got back home a couple hours ago. I had to set up this whole thing. This is a great opportunity to be able to once again be on camera and be able to talk to all of you. I know that there's a lot of people that are waiting to hear what I have to say about certain events that are happening around the world, and of course in the Middle East in particularly. And I know that I had been refraining from doing that for a reason. I can share it with you. I just think that the internet is filled with so many of those things, things that are called prophecy update, and I just think that there's no need for one more. I really believe that my calling is to teach the Bible, mostly to teach people around, to get ready, to prepare ourselves. Of course, I believe for the rapture of the church, because I do believe with all of my heart it is one of those things that the people around the world are having problems with. Just this morning I received a message while I was in Zurich, in between flights. Somebody wrote me and said, you have to understand. And I just believe with all of my heart that we are to stay away from things that are marking days and hours. We are not to know the day, not to know the hour. We are to know the times and the seasons based on the description that Jesus gave to the disciples in Mount of Olives, what the signs of the end of the age are. And it's interesting because people always tend to go to the unknown rather than to the known. God said in His Word that He declares the end from the beginning. But at the same time, in Deuteronomy 29, verse 29, God says, the secret things belongs to the Lord, and those that are revealed belong to us and to our children. So basically, what I think is that we need to stick to those things. I'm being told that the connection is frozen, so let me try to fix it, okay, and see what's going on. If not, we'll just have to do it sometime else. All right. I guess it's not frozen, and we can continue. So we're going to start officially right now. Shalom, Shabbat Shalom from the Galilee, from Israel. I'm glad to be able to share with you. Once again, I just wanted to make it very clear, this is not a weekly prophecy update. I don't try to do things on a regular basis. I know others people do, and God bless them, and it's good. It's actually very good. I just don't think that this is what I need to do. I prefer to teach the Bible and to be able to teach whatever I believe about Bible prophecy in forms of Bible teachings and Bible studies, and then of course to share it with everyone else. This is the essence of why I'm traveling around the world, why I'm invited to speak in conferences and in churches across the globe. I just returned this afternoon, just a few hours ago, from Japan. After having been to Singapore and Japan, God had truly, tremendously blessed this tour. I will be honest with you, for the people in Singapore, I will say, I thought Singapore will just be a quick event on my way to Japan. And little did I know that coming to Singapore, the event would be growing from 300, 400 people to 1,400 that registered online, and actually more registered online, and just 1,400 people roughly showed up. And we had to move the event to a larger venue. We had some opposition from some people that anonymously called the theater and threatened that the government will come and shut it down, and a lot of very, very demonic opposition to, and I knew then that it has to be something good. Lots of people showed up. The evenings, both evenings, were an amazing display of unity of the body of Christ in Singapore, which normally is meeting in forms of what I call denominations. It was a para or interdenominational event. People from all sorts of walks of life in the Christian world came, from people of the large mega churches to people of the tiny, small, little churches. And the Lord has truly blessed. I truly felt that this was, it is a topic. Bible prophecy is a topic that is being neglected both in mega churches and in the smaller churches. Whether it's neglected because they want to stay politically correct, or it's neglected because people do not believe in dispensational eschatology. Both are wrong, I believe, and so it was beautiful to see people that are saying, okay, I don't get it in my church. Somebody's coming, he's going to share with us, and we're going to show up. It was in the middle of the week. I did not expect that crowd. I will be honest, when they told me it's going to be 300, 400 people, I was surprised that many people will show up. And then when it grew to 1,400 people, I was not surprised. I was blown away. I was humbled also, because I never expected that. I tried to keep the facade of a reserved, cool, but I was emotionally, it was amazing to me. I was very humbled to see all of that, and God has truly blessed. And then from Singapore, after 2 nights event, I spoke unexpectedly in a women's Bible study in Bethany Church about seeking the things which are above. And then I moved to Japan, and it was amazing. Landing in Japan with people waiting for me at the airport with small little Israeli flags, and they took me, and I spoke rather small venues. But again, 200 people in Japan equals to, 15,000, 2,000, 20,000 in places like America. And so it was an amazing thing. I even got to speak in towns where no Israeli believer ever set his foot there, as far as teaching the Bible. And I'm not talking about Bible prophecy, I'm talking about, in general. So the people were very, very thankful that I made that trip over there. One of the most humbling thing was a pastor who's in his 70s showed up to one event, and then he said if he can come to teach at the pastor's conference that he held in his little church in the upper room of his house, basically. And then he put his 2 hands in his pockets, and he pulled the pockets out, basically to say, I'm sorry, I have no money to pay for your visit. And I said, this is why I want to come to your church. I'm not here for money. I never ask for anything, neither in Singapore nor in Japan. I believe that if the Lord is calling me to come and speak, whether it's small venue or big venue, I don't have to worry about the expenses. I don't have to worry about all of these things. And it was such an amazing thing, because he was sure that I'm not going to show up. He was sure that it's not going to happen. And we took a train. It was an hour train ride, and then another taxi ride. And by the time we reached to his place, it was a small yet packed place. And God is truly blessed. I felt the presence of the Holy Spirit. I felt the unity in the Spirit, and I felt that a lot of breakthroughs were achieved throughout the Singapore and Japan event. Then, of course, the last event was in the greater Tokyo area, in the city of Kawasaki. Wow, so many people showed up. Again, it's the middle of the week, and so many people showed up. I managed to be able, during the Japan tour, to speak about, to teach the new message on Gog and Magog, and seeking the things that are above, and it was an amazing thing. I want to thank all of you who have been supporting the ministry. That it is because of you that I was able to go there, and it is because of you that I'm able to go to many other countries that cannot really afford having someone coming all the way from Israel, flight-wise, hotel-wise, expenses-wise, and yet I don't care. I just go, and God provides, and it's just amazing. So I want to thank you. Another thing I want to thank you is that due to a very generous donation in Singapore by one of the people who attended the seminar there, we are able now to translate all my messages online to Chinese, to Japanese, to Spanish, to Indonesian, and to Tagalog, in the language of the Philippines. So, and once funds will come, we'll have German and French as well, and Portuguese as well, so we can reach more and more countries. But thanks to the translation on YouTube to Japanese, so many Japanese are now following Behold Israel. So many Japanese are now coming to those meetings and to those events, and are able to understand Bible prophecy in a way that they never did before. So it is all thanks to you guys, and I really want to thank you. And again, I said before, this whole broadcast was frozen. I said that a lot of people have so many weird ideas about the rapture, about the tribulation, about Gog and Magog, Armageddon, all that. So it was great to be able to come and put things in the right perspective. Of course, not everyone may agree with me, but I do want to tell you that a lot of people that believed in the mid and the post-trib rapture changed their mind after my visit right now, both in Singapore and Japan. So I'm thankful that I was able to do that. But this is a special Middle East current events update, and it's not going to be long, trust me. This is a special one because it's a special thing that I believe the media is not reporting. It's something that is floating right now over the last 48 hours, which I believe, just as I saw events in Europe that could lead to how Europe is getting ready for the rise of the Antichrist, and just as I see events that are happening with, in Africa, in Russia, and in the Arabian Peninsula, I think that this particular thing that I'm about to talk about right now has the biggest potential for a war that will be waged on Israel as a result of Israel having to deal with that issue. And let me explain something. Israel for many years was against Iran developing ballistic missiles, and of course once we saw that they started developing nuclear weapon, we realized it's only a matter of time until they have the nuclear capability put on the ballistic missiles, and then it will reach anywhere they want. But again, the hundreds of miles of buffer that we have with Iraq and Jordan and Syria between us and the Iranians made us not feel so vulnerable with the regular ballistic missiles. We thought we have enough time to get ready, run to the bomb shelter, just like the Scud missiles in Iraq in 1990, When Saddam Hussein launched it, we had literally 7 minutes to run and hide. Well, one other thing is, as you know, is that Israel always systematically destroyed convoys of long-range missiles that would come either to Sinai from Sudan by the Iranians or to Syria and Lebanon by the Iranians. And because we may be able to prepare ourselves for a long-range missile coming all the way from Iran or Iraq, but it will be almost impossible to prepare for a rocket that is flying from Syria. A rocket from Syria will hit Israel within less than a minute. And this is exactly why the Israelis are on the highest alert right now. Let me explain why. Over the last 48 hours, we learned two things. One, we learned that the Iranians started building an underground missile factory, basically. They understand that Israel detects every shipment of rockets to Syria. And so they say, well, instead of having that, every time we bring it, the Israelis destroy it, why don't we produce it? Why don't we make it in Syria and in Lebanon? This way, we don't have to ship them. We don't have to transport them. We're not a target of the Israeli airplanes. And they built two factories under the ground in Lebanon that we know of. But the troubling thing is, if in Lebanon still there is an army and a government, we just learned that they built something in Syria. Not only that they built it in Syria, you have to understand something. We believe that the Syrian Scientific Studies and Research Center, the SSSRC, is basically the facility that is capable of developing this non-conventional weapon. We actually believe this is the facility, by the way, but before the Iranians started building this is where they made also the chemical weapon that was used for the attack earlier this year in April that killed over 80 different people over there. We believe that the reports of the last 48 hours of what the Iranian did is basically something that indicates that the Iranian regime had begun manufacturing advanced missile technology in Syria with permission of Assad, and, now comes the point, also with the Russians involved in it. Now, when I dare to come live on Facebook, I do that with concrete information that we, the Israelis, know. North Korean and Russian scientists are on location in that factory. The Iranians don't have the capability. They have the money, they have the intention, they have the will to do things, but it is the Russians and North Koreans right now, the same North Koreans that helped the Syrians build the nuclear reactor that Israel destroyed in 2007, are now the North Koreans that are helping the Iranians build in Syria that factory. And if that's not enough, which, by the way, should be enough for us to want to go and deal with them, if that's not enough, the problem goes bigger even. And over the last 24 hours, Israel learned that Iran, similar to what the Russians did, Iran just leased in the center of Syria an airbase in order to put there a permanent presence of jet fighters, or fighter jets, excuse me. We're speaking of airbase, Iranian airbase in the heart of Syria. Now, why is it so alarming? Because you can imagine Israel won't be able anymore to fly and take care of business should something wrong move and threaten us. Simultaneously, one more thing happened is that we just learned that there is negotiations right now about establishing infantry military base with 5,000 Shiite soldiers, warriors, as well as a military naval base in Tarsus where the Russians have one. You have to understand something. For many, many years, we've been warning and we've been trying to stop the expansion of Iran all the way into Syria. We talked to the Russians about it over the last year and a half. We've talked to the Americans before, but right now the problem is that the Russians are on the ground, and right now the problem is that we cannot hit those targets because there are Russians on the ground. We're not sure what we can do, but I know that if we hit those targets, which we have to at some point, we're going to have problems with Russia as well. The Russians didn't mind Israeli attack in Syria as long as we had nothing to to attack that belongs to them or their interests. Right now, we can see that the growing tension between America and the Russians, between the Europeans and the Russians, between the Saudis and the Russians, causes the Russians to become a closer and closer ally of Iran, and thus they're allowing the Iranians to do that. The Russians are saying basically, we rather supervise the Iranian presence in Syria rather than say no, and they do that anyway without our supervision. And therefore the Russians are involved right now in the Iranian presence in Syria. This is a very alarming situation right now. Israel has to deal with this in the very near future. We're not sure when. And this is exactly what I believe, the thing that has you see, oil and gas was the hook that already brought Russia down to the Middle East. Iran used ISIS as an excuse to come in. Turkey is using ISIS as an excuse to come in. These countries are already physically near Israel. All it takes now is the wrong move on Israel's side for these countries to come up against us. So I thought this is an extremely important thing to report. Beyond that, the chaos in Europe resumes as summer comes in and the Mediterranean is no longer dangerous, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands of Muslim refugees that are now flowing again into Europe from two different places, from the Balkan all the way through towards Turkey, of course, from Turkey all the way into Europe, and from Libya. Now, it's very interesting. The world rich families, the Illuminati families, the one world government families, targeted Muammar Gaddafi and actually wiped him out, destroyed him, killed him. I mean, think about it. Much greater and more cruel dictators are being left alive, yet Gaddafi was literally taken out by the world powers, by the UN, by the Russians' involvement, and by the NATO involvement. And the reason is very simple. He was a big threat on the effort for one world government and for the one world economy, having introduced new currency that they couldn't live with. And therefore he was taken out. He was taken out, and look what we got now in Libya. Libya now is a country that has 4 different governments, The Libyans receive money from the Europeans to try to stop the illegal immigration. They take the money, but they stop nothing. The Libyans, they are indulging in seeing Europe coming down. But Europe won't come down. It's Libya that is coming down, and the Europeans are allowing the massive immigration. You have to understand, according to international law, once those immigrants leave the coast of Africa, within 12 nautical miles, they're beyond Africa's territory, and the international community, by law, and especially by the European laws, must save them if something happened. So the minute they cross that line of 12 nautical miles away from Africa, they immediately say, Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. And for the most part, it's Italian, but not only Italian, even Sweden sent a boat, and other French have boats. They must save them, and they must rescue them, and they must take them. And billionaires like George Soros, which is, by the way, he's heavily in a center of news right now in Europe and Israel because of campaign that was against him in Hungary right now in the elections there. George Soros admitted, I'm doing a lot of bad things, and with the money that I get from the bad things, I want to do good things. That's what he said. And for him, good things is to save those people. So far, he spent over the last 20, 30, 40 years, I don't know, more than $20 billion on those things. Again, he's perceived as a philanthropist, as he's perceived as someone who's for the good cause. But what we don't see, what we don't know, is that all that money is actually to cause chaos in Europe, so people will be panicky enough to vote for leaders just like Macron, which, by the way, I never said is the Antichrist, but I just said this is what the Antichrist can look like or be like or rise like. And so we can see that the terrible flow of immigration into Europe causes the Europeans to look for a deliverer, to look for a savior. And that's why The Economist called Macron, is it Europe's a savior, basically portraying him walking on water. This is disgusting. So I just needed you to understand that the flow of immigrants into Europe is in full force right now, as summer had officially begun right there. In Syria, situation is very, very explosive right now. The Saudis are they swing all the way from country that was on the terrorist harboring and supporting side, all the way to understanding that if they want to fight the Iranians, they have to be on the other side with us, and they're already on the other side. Amazing things are happening around the world, and this, unfortunately, catches the church not ready, catches the world not ready. But the world will never be really, fully, truly ready. The world is being deceived and is not ready. This is why I feel that there has to be an awakening. At least in the church, we have to teach the people around the world on current events and about Bible prophecy. People are asking me about Trump's visit to France right now, and about the French president invited Trump as a way of validation, as a way of, look, even the leader of the free world comes to my country to validate my... I don't know if there was an embarrassing video of the BBC of how in the group picture of the G20, Macron pushed people, left the second row, all the way to stand right by Trump. The same guy who trashed Trump, the same guy who disregarded Trump and disrespected him with that video about let us make the our planet great again, wants to stand by Trump and wants to stand with him also right now in his own country. So it's very interesting. He's looking for validation. He's looking for a show of strength. He's speaking English. He's speaking to the people around the world. I'm not in the, I don't believe that we're looking at the Antichrist, but I do believe that Europe, producing people like him, is in the shape of being ripe for the real deal to come and to rise over there.